Hey guys, tonight we are going to become master builders of the ancient world. We're going to explore the quiet genius of medieval construction, uncovering the secrets that allowed simple stone walls, timber frames, and thatched roofs to survive for 1,000 years, often outlasting the modern concrete and steel structures we see today. You find yourself standing in a rolling green field, the air crisp, and before you is a low, moss-covered stone wall, intricately built without a single smear of mortar. If your last IKEA project ended in tears and an extra bag of screws, the idea of building a house that lasts a millennium with just rocks, wood, and mud might seem ambitious. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's always a pleasure seeing who's joining in from around the globe. So please feel free to drop your location and what time it is for you in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your journey into medieval construction begins with the most abundant and enduring material available to you: stone. The landscape is littered with it, cleared from the fields to make way for the plow. To you, these are not just rocks. They are the building blocks of permanence. Your task is to build a wall, perhaps to enclose a pasture for your livestock or to mark the boundary of your family's small plot of land. You will not use mortar. Mortar is a luxury, a material that requires a lime kiln and immense amounts of fuel to produce. But more than that, you understand that mortar can be a weakness. You are going to build a dry stone wall, an ancient and elegant puzzle of physics and patience. First, you must learn to read the stones. You walk the fields, your eyes scanning the piles of rock. You are not looking for just any stone. You are searching for specific shapes, each with a purpose. Your gaze falls upon large, flattish stones. These will be your foundations, the solid base upon which everything else will rest. You seek out smaller, more regular stones that will form the main layers or courses of the wall. And you keep a special eye out for the most important stones of all: the long, blocky tie stones or through stones, which will be the key to your wall's integrity. This is the world's most difficult and slowest game of Tetris. You're looking for that one perfect L-shaped stone, and you know it's out there somewhere, probably at the bottom of the heaviest pile. Once you have gathered your materials, the real work begins. You start by digging a shallow, level trench where your wall will stand. Into this trench, you place your largest foundation stones, fitting them together as tightly as possible to create a stable, wide base that won't shift or sink into the earth. With the foundation laid, you begin to build upwards. The core principle of dry stone walling is simple. Every stone must rest on at least 2 stones below it, and every gap must be filled. You build 2 faces for your wall, an inner and an outer side, working on them simultaneously. You select a stone, judge its shape and weight, and place it carefully on the course below, ensuring it bridges the joint of the 2 stones beneath it. This interlocking pattern distributes the weight downwards and outwards, creating a structure of immense stability. As you build the 2 faces up, the gap between them, the heart of the wall, is not left empty. You fill this cavity with smaller, irregular stones known as harding. This isn't just random rubble. You pack the harding in tightly, using the small stones to wedge the larger face stones into place, eliminating any wobble. This tightly packed core is crucial. It gives the wall its mass and prevents the faces from bulging inwards over time. To coordinate the heavy, rhythmic work of lifting and placing the stones, you might fall into a simple chant or a working song. This quirky, fringe tradition of walling songs is a form of pre-industrial work music, much like a sea shanty. The shared rhythm helps to synchronize your efforts with a partner, making the back-breaking labor a little easier and setting a steady, productive pace. At regular intervals, about every 3 or 4 feet up, you install the crucial tie stones. These are the long stones you set aside earlier. You place them so that they run all the way through the entire thickness of the wall, from the outer face to the inner face. These stones act like stitches, pinning the two sides of the wall together and making it a single, solid unit. Without them, the pressure from the hearting inside would eventually cause the two faces to bulge and collapse. Finally, after hours of patient work, you reach the top of the wall. The final layer is the coping. These are the heaviest stones, often large, flat slabs or angled stones placed on their edge. They serve two purposes. Their immense weight presses down on the entire structure, locking everything below them into place. They also help to shed rainwater, directing it off the top of the wall and preventing it from seeping down into the hearting. The finished wall is a work of art, a tapestry of stone, shadow, and light. But its true genius lies in what it doesn't have: mortar. In a climate of freezing winters, mortar is a liability. Water seeps into tiny cracks, and when it freezes, it expands with incredible force, shattering the mortar and pushing the stones apart. Your mortar-free wall, however, is designed to work with water, not against it. Rain can drain freely through the countless small gaps between the stones, preventing any pressure from building up. Any water that does get trapped and freezes can expand without damage, because the stones are not rigidly fixed. They can shift minutely, accommodating the ice and settling back into place when it thaws. The wall is designed to subtly shift and move with the ground. It has more flexibility than most people have on a Monday morning. This flexibility allows the wall to breathe, to settle with the land, and to endure the endless cycles of freeze and thaw for centuries. This ancient technique is why vast networks of dry stone walls, many dating back to your time and even earlier, still crisscross the landscapes of Europe. You can see them today in places like the Yorkshire Dales in England or the Aran Islands of Ireland. Their gray, moss-covered forms a testament to the skill of their builders. These structures have stood for centuries, weathering storms and seasons, long after many mortared castles have crumbled into ruin. Archaeologists and historians still argue about the primary purpose of many of the vast, ancient field systems defined by these walls. Were they purely agricultural, built for the practical purposes of containing livestock and marking property boundaries? Or did they also hold a deeper social or even spiritual significance, representing a community's profound and permanent mark upon the landscape, a way of taming the wild and creating order from chaos? For you, the builder, the reasons are both practical and profound. This wall will keep your sheep from wandering. It marks the land that feeds your family. But it is also your legacy. It is a solid, enduring thing in a world of uncertainty. It is a puzzle of stone and gravity, a quiet conversation with the earth, built with your own two hands to last longer than you ever will. The dry stone wall you have built is a monument to permanence, a feature rooted in the earth, designed to become one with the landscape. It is solid, heavy, and immovable. But now, you turn your attention to your dwelling, and here, you will employ a completely different philosophy. You will build a structure that is not rigid, but flexible, not fixed, but adaptable. You will build a house that breathes with the earth. You are going to raise a timber frame. Your first and most important relationship is with the forest. You are a student of wood. You know the character of different trees as intimately as you know the faces of your own family. For the skeleton of your house, you need the king of the forest, the oak. Its wood is dense, immensely strong, and famously resistant to rot. You select a great, mature oak, and with an axe and a simple saw, you and your fellow villagers undertake the colossal task of felling it. The massive trunk is then painstakingly squared into enormous beams, a process that can take days of sweat and labor. These freshly cut, or green, beams are not yet ready for building. They are full of water and sap. If you were to build with them now, they would warp, twist, and shrink as they dried, tearing your house apart. So, you must practice patience. The great beams are stacked carefully, allowing air to circulate around them, and left to season for months, sometimes even years. This slow drying process is critical. It stabilizes the wood, reduces its moisture content, and makes it even stronger. When the timbers are finally ready, you do not reach for a keg of iron nails. Nails are expensive, forged one by the blacksmith. They also rust and weaken over time. You will join these massive beams together using a technique that is far more elegant, durable, and ingenious: the mortise and tenon joint. You're essentially building a life-sized, incredibly heavy piece of wooden Lego. The main difference is that there are no instructions, and if you lose a piece, you have to go cut down another tree. The concept is simple. At the end of one beam, you carefully carve a projection, a tongue of wood called a tenon. In the face of the beam it will connect to, you carve a corresponding hole, a perfectly sized rectangular socket called a mortise. This requires precision. You use a chisel, a mallet, and a keen eye to ensure the fit is snug. The tenon slides into the mortise, creating a tight, interlocking connection. But the real magic is in how you lock it. You don't use glue or metal. You drill a hole, or auger, through the side of the mortise and through the tenon that now sits inside it. Then, you take a piece of dried, seasoned oak and carve it into a thick, sturdy peg called a trunnel, which is short for tree nail. You hammer this wooden peg through the hole, pinning the tenon firmly inside the mortise. The joint is now locked wood to wood, a connection of immense strength. The genius of this system is multi-layered. Firstly, it creates a structure that is not rigid, but flexible. The wooden joints have a microscopic amount of give. This allows the entire frame of the house to shift and flex in response to the movement of the earth, the buffeting of strong winds, or even the tremors of an earthquake. A mortared stone building under the same stresses would crack and fail. Your timber-framed house, however, moves like a boxer, absorbing the blows and settling back into place. Secondly, and perhaps most cleverly, the structure actually tightens and strengthens over time. You often use fully seasoned wood for the main beams, but you might use a slightly unseasoned or green peg for the trunnel. As this green peg slowly dries out over the years inside the joint, it changes shape slightly, often expanding to become more oval. This process locks it even more securely into the auger hole, making the joint tighter and stronger than the day it was built. The house literally strengthens itself with age. It's the opposite of most modern things, which seem to have a self-destruct timer that starts the day after the warranty expires. This type of construction is called a box frame, and it is the load-bearing skeleton of your house. The walls you will eventually build between the timbers, perhaps the Wattle and Daub we have discussed before, are merely infill panels. They are curtains, not structural supports. All the weight of the roof and floors is carried by this magnificent wooden frame. This is a key architectural principle that allows for great versatility. As you assemble this giant puzzle, keeping track of which beam connects to which is a significant challenge. To solve this, you use a system of carpenter's marks. This quirky and fascinating tidbit is your pre-literate instruction manual. As you prepare each joint, you carve a unique, simple symbol into the wood on both sides of the connection. These marks are often based on a system of Roman numerals, or they might be simple geometric shapes like triangles or circles. When the time comes to erect the frame, you simply have to match the symbols. The V with the V, the X with the X, these marks. Your personal signature as a builder can still be seen on the timbers of surviving medieval buildings today, a silent testimony to the hands that crafted them. The existence and remarkable preservation of these medieval timber-framed buildings is a mainstream historical fact, with famous examples still standing and in use across Europe, from the Tudor houses of England to the Fachwerkhäuser of Germany. Perhaps the most astonishing feature of this construction method is its potential for portability. Because the house is a system of interlocking parts held together by removable pegs, it can be taken apart. If a single beam at the base of a wall begins to rot after a century of exposure to damp, you can support the structure, knock out the pegs, remove the damaged beam, and slot a new one in its place without destroying the entire house. Even more remarkably, a whole building could be moved. Your house is technically portable. Moving it just requires a team of oxen, a year of planning, and the world's most complicated instruction manual. Architectural historians debate the extent to which timber-framed houses were actually disassembled and moved. While it was technically possible, and we have documented cases of high-status buildings like guild halls or barns being relocated, was this a common practice for the average peasant dwelling, or an exceptionally rare event that has been romanticized over time? For a structure of great value, the effort might be worth it. The timbers could be carefully taken apart, each one numbered with its carpenter's mark, transported to a new site, and painstakingly reassembled, a testament to the ultimate sustainability of the design. As you hammer the final peg into place and stand back to look at the completed skeleton of your home, you see more than just a wooden frame. You see a structure that is alive. It is made from a material that was once a living tree, and it continues to breathe and shift with the seasons. It is strong enough to carry the weight of a roof, yet flexible enough to dance with the earth. It is a testament to a deep understanding of wood, a mastery of simple tools, and a philosophy of building that values patience, precision, and a harmonious relationship with the natural world. This wooden skeleton, joined by nothing but its own interlocking parts, will be the enduring heart of your home for generations to come. The great timber skeleton of your house now stands, a framework of seasoned oak joined with the timeless strength of the mortise and tenon. It is a marvel of flexibility and durability, but it is naked to the sky. You now must give your home its primary shield against the elements, its great overarching cloak that will protect it from the rain, the the sun and the cold. It is time to build the roof, and you will build it from the humble yet miraculous materials of the harvest, straw or reeds. You are going to thatch. The roof is perhaps the most critical part of any dwelling. It is the fifth wall, the one that takes the most direct punishment from the weather. Your roof looks less like a modern roof and more like the world's most impressive haircut. It's a bit shaggy, but it's a masterpiece of high-performance, organic engineering. The material you use depends entirely on your local landscape. If you live near a marsh or waterway, you have access to the premium thatching material, water reed. It is naturally tough, waxy, and resistant to rot. A roof made of water reed, if laid by a skilled hand, can last for more than 50 years, even a lifetime. If you don't have access to reeds, you use the most common material available to a farmer, the straw left over from your grain harvest. Wheat or rye straw is less durable than reed, needing more frequent maintenance, but it is a resource you have in abundance. It is another example of the fundamental medieval philosophy. Waste nothing. The process of thatching is a skilled art, often performed by a specialist in the village. You watch the master thatcher at work, or perhaps you are that master yourself, learning the craft passed down from your father. The work begins at the bottom of the steep roof frame, at the eaves. Bundles of straw or reed, tied tightly together, are laid onto the roof battens. The thatcher, using a long, needle-like tool, essentially sews these bundles onto the wooden frame, using tarred cord or twisted ropes of willow or straw, known as sways and liggers, to hold them fast. Layer upon layer is added, each new course overlapping the one below it by a significant margin. This overlapping is key to the roof's performance. The final structure is not a thin covering but a dense, tightly packed mat that is often more than a foot thick. This incredible thickness is what gives the roof its remarkable insulating properties. The millions of tiny air pockets trapped within the densely packed straw create a thermal barrier that is superior to many modern materials. In the winter, it traps the precious heat from your hearth inside. In the summer, it blocks the intense heat of the sun, keeping your home cool and shaded. The steep angle of your roof, often pitched at more than 45 degrees, is not an aesthetic choice. It is a crucial element of the design. The magic of a thatched roof is that it does not work by being a solid, waterproof barrier. Instead, it works by shedding water efficiently. When rain falls, it hits the steep surface and, due to gravity, runs straight down the outside of the long, hollow stems of the straw or reeds. The water travels from one overlapping layer to the next, never penetrating more than an inch or two into the thatch before it drips harmlessly off the eaves. The dense core of your roof remains perpetually bone dry. A thatched roof is also able to breathe, unlike a sealed, modern roof. The natural fibers allow moisture generated inside the house, from cooking, from washing, from the very breath of your family, to slowly escape. This prevents the buildup of condensation, which could lead to rot in the precious timber frame that the roof is designed to protect. It is a living, breathing part of your home. The most vulnerable part of the roof is the very peak, the ridge. Here, the two sides meet, creating a potential entry point for water. The ridge must be capped with great care. It is often made from a different, more flexible material, like tough sedge grass, which is bent over the peak and secured tightly. Sometimes, A layer of clay and turf is used. This ridge cap is the part of the roof that requires the most maintenance, and you might need to replace it every 10 to 15 years. The good news is your roof will last 50 years. The bad news is you'll probably have to get up there and fix it yourself. There's no calling a roofer when you are the roofer. As a final touch, a master thatcher might add a decorative finial to the ridge. This quirky and beautiful tradition served as a kind of signature. The thatcher might craft a bird, a fox, or a simple geometric design from straw and sedge, a small flourish of artistry on an otherwise purely functional structure. It was a form of advertising his skill and a way to bring a little bit of personality or folk magic to the home. Of course, a thick roof of dry straw sitting directly above an open hearth seems like a recipe for disaster. Having a thick, dry straw roof over an open fire seems like a questionable life choice. It's why everyone in the village is on a first-name basis with the person who owns the biggest bucket. The risk of fire was very real, and it's one reason why the practice of banking fires at night under the curfew bell was so strictly enforced. It was this very danger that led to the decline of thatch in urban areas. The Great Fire of London in 1666, a mainstream historical event that reshaped the city, spread with terrifying speed across the tightly packed thatched roofs. In its aftermath, new building codes banned thatch within the city walls, marking the beginning of a shift towards slate and tile. But in the countryside, your trusted thatch remains the roof of choice for centuries to come. Historians and conservationists today still debate the authenticity of modern thatching. While the core principles are timeless, did you, the medieval builder, use the exact same tools, the same bundle densities, and the same securing methods that are considered traditional today? Or have the techniques, like a living language, evolved and changed subtly over the centuries, adapted by each new generation of thatchers? The details may be lost to time, but the result is not. Your completed roof is a heavy, bristly cloak settled comfortably on the shoulders of your timber frame. It is a perfect fusion of natural materials and human ingenuity, a shield against the elements that is both insulating and breathable, durable and beautiful. It is the crowning achievement of your home, a testament to the fact that sometimes the simplest, most ancient solutions are the most brilliant of all. The magnificent thatched roof is now complete, its heavy cloak settled upon the timber frame, sealing your home into a dark, protected space. You have shelter from the wind and the rain, but you have also created a cave. You need light to work, to see the faces of your family, to simply feel human. The obvious solution is to cut a hole in the wall, but an open hole is an invitation to the very elements you have worked so hard to keep out. A simple wooden shutter gives you a stark choice: light accompanied by a freezing wind, or warmth accompanied by total darkness. You need a third way, a material that can let in the light while barring the wind and rain. In your world, glass is a substance of mythic status. It is a jewel, a form of solid magic reserved for the vast, celestial windows of cathedrals and the fortified castles of the greatest lords. The idea of putting a sheet of fragile, impossibly expensive glass in the wall of your humble dwelling is beyond absurd. Glass windows are for people who like to see exactly how miserable the weather is outside. Your window will provide a gentle, blurry light that suggests it's probably gray out there, which is much better for your morale. And the material for this window will not come from a craftsman's furnace, but from the same source as much of your food and clothing: an animal. The solution comes from the byproducts of the autumn slaughter. When a pig or a cow is butchered, Nothing is wasted. The meat is eaten or preserved, the fat is rendered into lard, the bones are boiled for broth, and the hide is tanned for leather. But there is another valuable organ, often discarded, the bladder. In your hands, this simple, humble sack will be transformed into a source of light. Your window is brought to you by the same pig that provided last month's bacon. It's the ultimate in recycling. You get a meal and a home improvement material. The process of creating a bladder skin window is a visceral and smelly, yet delicate, craft. First, the bladder is carefully removed from the animal carcass. It must be emptied and then flushed repeatedly with water to clean it of any residue. This is a crucial step. Any impurity left behind will create an opaque spot or cause the skin to rot. Once cleaned, the bladder is soaked, often in a solution of water and lime or wood ash. This alkaline bath helps to soften the tissue and makes it easier to remove any remaining fatty deposits or membranes. After soaking, you lay the bladder on a flat board and carefully scrape it with the back of a knife. The goal is to make the membrane thinner, more uniform, and as translucent as possible, without tearing the delicate tissue. The next stage is the most critical. You take a simple wooden frame, the size of your intended window, and you stretch the wet, pliable bladder across it. It must be stretched until it is as taut as the head of a drum. Any slack or wrinkles will result in a weak, saggy pane. You secure the edges to the frame with small wooden pegs or by tacking it down. The frame is then put in a cool, airy place, away from direct sunlight, to dry slowly. As the bladder dries, it shrinks, pulling itself even tighter, and the tissue transforms. It becomes a stiff, tough, and remarkably translucent sheet of animal parchment. To give it a final layer of protection against the damp and to keep it from becoming brittle, you might rub the finished pane with lard or another type of oil, which makes it more supple and weather-resistant. The finished product is not glass. It is not perfectly clear. It is a cloudy, milky pane with a yellowish or amber hue. The view through your bladder window is best described as impressionistic. You can't see the neighbor's cow, but you can see a large, brown, cow-shaped blur, which is close enough. Its purpose is not to see out, but to let light in. And it does this beautifully. It transforms the harsh glare of the sun into a soft, diffused, golden glow that fills your dark hut with a gentle, calming ambiance. This ingenious use of animal organs was part of a whole suite of pre-glass window technologies. In some coastal or riverine communities, a quirky regional variation might involve using the skin from a fish, particularly the large, translucent swim bladders of sturgeon. A more common solution, also widely used, was to stretch a piece of linen cloth or paper across the window frame and then saturate it with oil, usually linseed oil, or wax. This made the fabric translucent and waterproof, creating a similar effect to the bladder pane. These were all different paths to the same goal, a barrier that could separate light from the elements. When you fit your new window into the wall, it immediately changes the character of your home. The interior is no longer a choice between a dark, stuffy box and a bright, freezing one. It is now a softly illuminated sanctuary. You can sit near the window and mend a net or spin wool, your work lit by the gentle, natural light filtering through the treated skin. It is a small but profound improvement in your quality of life. Historians and experimental archaeologists still debate the true durability of these organic window panes. How long could a pig's bladder window actually last when battered by a season of winter storms? Was it a temporary solution that needed to be replaced each year after the autumn slaughter? Or could a well-made and properly treated pane endure for several years? The answer likely depends on the quality of the preparation and the severity of the climate. But even if it only lasted a single season, it was a season of light, made possible by a resource that would have otherwise been thrown away. The bladder window is a perfect example of the medieval mindset. It is a solution born of necessity, crafted with simple tools from a material that is readily available. It is resourceful, sustainable, and surprisingly effective. It demonstrates an intimate knowledge of the properties of natural materials and an unwillingness to waste any part of the world around you. It is a small, glowing testament to the quiet, often strange, genius of medieval engineering. Your new bladder skin window is now fitted snugly within its section of the great timber frame, casting a soft, golden light into the interior of your home. But it is a window surrounded by nothing, an opening in a skeleton of wood. You now need to give your house its skin, to fill the empty spaces between the massive oak beams and create a solid barrier against the world. For this, you will turn to the same materials you used for the house we explored in our last journey, but you will use them in a way that is perfectly adapted to your timber frame structure. You are going to build your walls from Wattle and Daub. The walls of your home are made of sticks, mud, straw, and poop. When people ask for the ingredients of your success, you can be surprisingly literal. This is not a solid, load-bearing wall like one made of stone. The entire weight of your house is carried by the timber frame. The Wattle and Daub panels are simply infills, a skin stretched across the wooden bones. This is a critical distinction that gives the structure its unique properties. The process begins with the wattle. You take your auger and drill a series of holes into the large horizontal beams at the top and bottom of the empty panel you intend to fill. Into these holes, you hammer sturdy, upright wooden stakes. These are the wattles, and they form the vertical warp of what will become a kind of giant, in-place loom. Once the stakes are secure, you begin weaving. You take thin, flexible saplings. Hazel and willow are favorites for their pliability, and you weave these rods horizontally in and out of the upright stakes. The work is rhythmic, your hands moving in a steady, practiced motion, over, under, over, under. The result is a beautiful and surprisingly strong lattice of woven wood, held securely within the embrace of the heavy oak frame. With the wattle complete, it is time to prepare the daub. This is not simply digging up some mud and slapping it on the wall. It is a form of primitive material science, a recipe perfected over thousands of years. You begin by digging clay from a known good source, a pit that yields clay with the right amount of plasticity. You haul it back to your building site and dump it into a shallow pit lined with planks. To the clay, you add a temper of sand or gritty soil, which will help to control cracking as the daub dries. Then comes the reinforcement. You mix in generous handfuls of fibrous material like straw, animal hair, or even dried moss. These fibers are the secret to the daub's durability. Just as steel rebar reinforces modern concrete, these organic fibers give the daub immense tensile strength, holding the clay together and preventing it from crumbling. Finally, you add water and the ever-present secret ingredient, animal dung. The dung adds yet more fiber and, as we've discussed, its chemical properties are believed to help preserve the wood and bind the mixture. Now for the fun part, You roll up your tunic, and with your bare feet, you step into the daub pit to mix the ingredients. You mix the daub with your feet. It's like a spa day mud bath, except it smells much worse, and at the end of it, you have to smear it on your house. You tread the mixture over and over, slowly adding water until it reaches the perfect consistency. A thick, sticky, homogeneous paste, like a giant batch of sourdough starter. Archaeologists sometimes discover these ancient daub pits near medieval building sites, and by analyzing the preserved contents, they can learn the exact recipe you are using, down to the types of animal hair and pollen contained within. With the daub mixed, you begin the application. You don't just apply one thick coat. A quality job is done in layers. First, you and your family take handfuls of the wet daub and press it firmly onto the wattle lattice from both sides at once. You push it hard, forcing it through the gaps so the inner and outer applications merge in the middle, creating a solid, unified core that is fully integrated with the woven wattle. You leave this rough coat to dry for a few days until it is firm but not fully hardened. As it dries, small cracks will inevitably appear. This is normal. You then mix a second, slightly smoother batch of daub and apply this over the first layer, filling the cracks and creating a more even surface. For a standard peasant dwelling, this might be the final coat. But for a higher status building, or if you simply take great pride in your work, you might apply a third and final finish coat. This would be a fine plaster made with sieved clay, fine sand, and perhaps some slaked lime, creating a beautifully smooth, hard surface. This finished wall is a marvel of engineering. Because it is an infill panel and not load-bearing, it is incredibly repairable. The good thing about a wattle and daub wall is that if someone accidentally puts a hole in it, repairs are easy. The bad thing is that it's possible to accidentally put a hole in it. If a section of the wall is damaged by a stray cart or a kicking animal, you don't have to rebuild the house. You simply cut out the damaged panel of wattle and daub, weave in a new wattle, and apply new daub. It is a modular system that can be maintained indefinitely. Crucially, the wall is also breathable. The porous nature of the clay and fibers allows it to absorb ambient moisture from the air inside your home and then slowly release it to the outside. This helps to regulate the indoor humidity, preventing the damp, stagnant conditions that can lead to sickness. Most importantly, this breathability prevents moisture from becoming trapped within the great oak timbers of the frame, protecting your home's precious skeleton from the insidious threat of rot. The final step is to give the wall a protective and decorative coating. You mix up a batch of lime wash, a simple paint made from slaked lime and water. This is a mainstream historical practice that gives many medieval buildings their iconic look. You paint the lime wash over the finished daub panels. The brilliant white finish transforms the look of your home, creating the beautiful contrast between the dark timbers and the light walls that we now call Tudor style. But it's not just for looks. The lime is naturally antibacterial and acts as a mild sanitizer. It also provides a breathable, protective layer against the weather, without trapping moisture like a modern, impermeable paint would. Historians often debate the social status implied by these different wall finishes. Was a rough, unfinished daub wall the clear sign of a poor peasant's hut, while a house with smooth, multi-layered, and lime-washed walls was the mark of a wealthier yeoman farmer or a town merchant? It is likely a combination of both wealth and regional tradition. A fine finish required more labor and more expensive materials like lime, but the fundamental technology of the woven, mud-packed wall was a universal feature of the timber-framed world. It was a durable, flexible, breathable, and easily repairable solution, perfectly suited to work in harmony with the living, moving skeleton of your magnificent timber-framed house. We have raised the timber frame, woven the wattle walls, and laid the thick thatch roof. Your house stands complete, a testament to the harmony of wood, earth, and straw. But all of this remarkable structure, from the lowest beam to the highest ridge, rests upon a secret that we must now uncover. We must go back in time, before the first timber was even cut, to the very first and most crucial decision you made as a builder. We must look at what your house stands on. We are going to lay the foundation. In the modern world, a foundation is a thing of brute force. A deep trench filled with steel-reinforced concrete, a rigid, impermeable slab designed to defy the earth. But you have neither concrete nor steel, and more importantly, you have a different philosophy. You know that to fight the earth is to lose. The ground beneath you is alive. It swells with rain, shrinks in drought, and heaves with the mighty force of the winter frost. Your foundation will not fight this movement. It will outsmart it. You will build a foundation that drains. You will build a rubble trench. Your foundation is essentially a ditch full of rocks. It sounds ridiculously simple, but it's a work of genius. It's the building equivalent of work smarter, not harder. After you have marked the footprint of your future home on the chosen site, you begin to dig a trench. This trench follows the line of your exterior walls, and you dig it a foot or two wide and deep enough to get below the frost line. That is, the depth to which the ground freezes solid in winter. Reaching this stable, unfrozen subsoil is critical. Before you even began, you may have performed a simple and quirky test to gauge the suitability of the soil. You might have dug a small test pit a few feet deep, filled it with water, and then watched to see how quickly it drained away. This ancient percolation test would tell you everything you need to know. If the water vanishes quickly, the soil is porous and perfect for your design. If it sits there for hours, a stagnant pool, the ground is dense clay and will hold water against your foundation. A dangerous proposition. You would have to find a better drain spot. Once your trench is dug, you begin to fill it. But you do not fill it with mortar or clay or packed earth. You fill it with rubble, a carefully chosen collection of loose, fist-sized stones. You shovel them in, layer after layer, until the trench is full to the top. There is no binder, no sand, no cement. The most important feature of this foundation is what is not there: solid mass. The secret lies in the gaps, the thousands of tiny voids between the loose stones. This trench now acts as a giant, subterranean drainage system, a technology that will one day be known as a French drain. Its primary purpose is to defeat the arch nemesis of your house: water. Water is constantly plotting to undermine you, rot your wood, and crack your stones. Your rubble trench is a clever judo move against it, using its own momentum to throw it out of the way. When groundwater rises from below, or when heavy rain soaks the soil around your home, the water flows into the trench. Instead of pooling against a solid barrier and creating hydrostatic pressure, it finds the path of least resistance. It flows freely through the network of voids between your rubble stones. Often, you will have dug the trench with a slight, almost imperceptible slope, so that this collected water is channeled harmlessly away from your dwelling and into a nearby ditch or lower-lying area. The most brilliant function of this design is its performance during the freeze-thaw cycle of winter. When water trapped in soil freezes, it expands by about 9%, exerting a force powerful enough to crack granite or shatter concrete. If your foundation were a solid, water-trapping structure, this frost heave would lift, crack, and eventually destroy it. But your rubble trench is largely empty of water because it drains so efficiently. What little moisture remains and freezes has room to expand into the voids between the stones. It doesn't exert any significant pressure on the structure. Your house can essentially float on this flexible, stable base, riding out the cycles of freezing and thawing without damage. When the trench is full, you lay the first and most important timber of your house, the massive horizontal sill beam, directly on top of this bed of loose stone. The sill beam is the base plate upon which the entire timber frame will be erected. The rubble trench provides a stable and, most importantly, dry platform that protects this crucial timber from the ground moisture that would cause it to rot. This technology is ancient and timeless. The Roman architectural writer Vitruvius described similar rubble trench foundations nearly 2,000 years ago. And centuries after your time, the famous architect Frank Lloyd Wright would champion the very same technique for his revolutionary prairie-style houses, recognizing its superior drainage and stability. Centuries later, a famous architect will get credit for this revolutionary idea. You just call it the reason my house hasn't fallen down yet, which is a pretty good name for it. Archaeologists who excavate medieval sites often find these simple, stone-filled trenches. Their interpretation, however, can be a subject of scholarly debate. Are these features always the clear remnants of a sophisticated rubble trench foundation, a sign of a well-designed building? Or could some of them be simpler structures, like a soak-away for household wastewater, or perhaps the filled-in ditch from a defensive wooden palisade that stood on the site in an earlier, more violent time? The context of the dig is everything, but the presence of these trenches is a widespread testament to a simple and effective idea. This foundation is the unsung hero of your home. It is invisible, buried beneath the ground, but it is the clever, stable base that makes everything else possible. It protects your home from water, the most persistent and destructive force of nature, not by fighting it, but by intelligently redirecting it. It is a quiet lesson in working with the environment rather than against it, a humble ditch full of rocks that provides a stable footing for a home built to last for generations. Your house now rests upon a clever rubble foundation, a hidden feature that protects your home's precious timber frame from the destructive power of water. This trench protects the perimeter, the edge where your house meets the world. But the genius of using the earth itself as a building partner doesn't stop at the walls. You apply the same principle to the very floor you walk on, creating a passive, year-round climate control system. You have a highly advanced, sustainable geothermal climate control system. Your friends just call it living in a hole in the ground, but they're just jealous of your non-existent energy bills. We must again go back to that very first act of construction, the digging. When you excavated the footprint of your home, you weren't just digging trenches for the foundation. You were sinking the entire living space 2 or 3 feet into the ground. This sunken feature design is the secret to your home's remarkable thermal stability. You are creating an earth-sheltered dwelling, a technique that humans have used for millennia, from the pit houses of the Stone Age to the sod houses of the American frontier. This is a mainstream historical practice found across cultures and continents. a near-universal solution to the problem of extreme temperatures. The principle is simple and profound. The Earth is a massive thermal battery. In the depths of winter, when the air outside is a tapestry of frost and the wind howls, the ground just a few feet down remains at a relatively stable, cool but not frozen temperature. By sinking your home into the earth, you are insulating it from the worst of the cold, borrowing the planet's latent warmth. We have discussed this in the context of surviving winter, but the system is even more brilliant because it works in reverse. Let us now imagine it is the height of summer. The sun beats down relentlessly on the fields. The air shimmers with a heat that saps your strength as you work the harvest. The world outside is a furnace. At midday, you trudge back to your hut, sweat stinging your eyes. You pull open the heavy wooden door and step inside. The effect is immediate and shocking. You descend the 1 or 2 steps down onto your floor, and the temperature plummets. It is as if you have walked into a cool, dark cave. Your home has natural air conditioning. It's dark, smells of earth, and occasionally has worms. But on a hot July day, it's the most popular spot in the village. The same earth that shares its warmth in winter now acts as a giant heat sink. The cool, dense mass of the floor and the surrounding earth walls actively pull the heat from your body and from the air in the hut. It is a constant, passive process of cooling, requiring no energy, no machinery, nothing but the cleverness of the initial design. This cool refuge allows you to rest and recover from the oppressive heat, a vital advantage in a life of hard physical labor under the summer sun. Of course, living partially underground presents one major challenge: dampness. You must be strategic. Your rubble trench foundation is your first line of defense, intercepting and draining away much of the water at the perimeter. Careful site selection is also crucial. By building on a slight slope, you allow gravity to pull water away from your dwelling naturally. And as we've discussed, the breathable Wattle and Daub walls allow any interior humidity to escape, preventing the buildup of stagnant, moldy air. It is a holistic system where each part helps the others to function. The floor itself is not just bare dirt. You take great care in preparing it. The subsoil is pounded with heavy wooden tampers until it is compacted and hard. It might be mixed with clay to create a smoother, more durable surface. Some builders might even mix in ox blood, a traditional binder that, when dry, created a surprisingly tough, water-resistant finish known as a pisse floor. The treatment of this floor is a quirky and fascinating seasonal practice. In the heat of summer, you might leave the packed earth floor bare, or perhaps with just a light scattering of sand. This maximizes its cooling potential, allowing you and your family to lie on the cool earth during the hottest part of the day. But as autumn turns to winter, you change your floor's clothes. You bring in armfuls of fresh, dry straw or cut bracken from the hillsides and lay a thick, insulating carpet across the entire floor. This layer traps air, providing a warm, comfortable cushion against the cool earth below. You might mix in dried, sweet-smelling herbs like meadowsweet or lavender, which release a pleasant fragrance as they are crushed underfoot and help to combat the musty, earthy smell of a damp winter. In the summer, your floor is dirt. In the winter, your floor is dirt with a thick layer of straw on top. It's a versatile design that really brings the outdoors in, a bit too literally sometimes. Archaeologists who study these sunken featured buildings continue to debate the primary motivation behind their construction. Was the main driver the sophisticated thermal benefit of this geothermal exchange? A deliberate and knowledgeable choice to create a more stable indoor climate? Or was the reason much simpler, a matter of conserving labor and materials? Sinking a floor by 2 feet, after all, means you have 2 fewer feet of wall to build, saving on timber, wattle, and the immense labor of daubing. The truth is likely that both factors were at play. It was a design that was both materially economical and thermally brilliant, a perfect solution for a builder with limited resources facing a challenging climate. By choosing to dig down, you have created a home that works in partnership with the planet. It is a living space that is cooler in summer, warmer in winter, and deeply connected to the cycles of the earth. It is a quiet, humble, and profound expression of sustainable design, proving that sometimes the most advanced technology is simply the intelligent use of the ground beneath your feet. Your sunken home is a passive marvel, a silent partner that uses the Earth's own stable temperature to shield you from the worst of the summer's heat and the winter's cold. It provides a baseline of survivability. But to truly transform this earthen shelter into a living, breathing home, you need an active, dynamic core. You need fire. And so, we return to the very center of your dwelling, to the single feature that serves as your heater, your stove, your lamp, and your social nexus, the clever central hearth. As we've discussed, this is not a fireplace as your descendants will know it. It is an open hearth, a circle of stones on the packed earth floor, positioned directly in the middle of the room. Its location is a deliberate choice for maximum heat radiation. But its most noticeable feature to a modern visitor would be the lack of a chimney. The smoke from the fire does not get whisked away up a flue. It rises, fills the upper reaches of your hut, and finds its own way out through a small, managed hole in the roof or through the porous thatch itself. The constant presence of this smoke is something you are simply accustomed to. Your home has the air quality of a bog that's on fire. You get used to it. Crying from the smoke just means your tear ducts are getting a good workout. But this ever-present, acrid cloud is not just a nuisance to be tolerated. It is an unsung hero of your home's construction, a key tool for its preservation. The smoke is your secret weapon against decay. As it rises and swirls through the rafters of your timber frame, it deposits a thin, greasy, black layer of soot and creosote on every wooden surface. This constant, gentle fumigation is a powerful preservative. The chemicals in the wood smoke are toxic to the arch enemies of your oaken frame. Wood-boring insects like woodworm and the insidious fungi that cause rot. The smoke effectively pickles your house's skeleton from the inside out, ensuring the great timbers will remain strong and sound for centuries. You don't have to worry about termites. Any bug that tries to eat your house will be immediately smoked like a fine ham and die of deliciousness. It's a win-win. This same process cures the inner layers of your thick thatch roof, making the straw water resistant and killing the molds and pests that would otherwise cause it to decompose. Of course, living in a constant haze took a toll on the human body. Social historians and archaeologists continue to debate the long-term health impacts of these smoke-filled environments. While the smoke preserved the house, what did it do to the people inside? Was the medieval population simply hardier and more adapted to these conditions? Or did the constant inhalation of smoke lead to widespread chronic respiratory illnesses, eye problems, and a significantly shorter life expectancy? The evidence in skeletal remains is inconclusive, but it is a stark reminder that every ingenious solution in your world comes with a trade-off. While the fire is a tool for preservation, it is also the engine of your daily life. To help it run efficiently, You might use a simple piece of hearth furniture, a quirky tidbit of ironmongery called a fire dog, or andiron. If you are prosperous enough to afford the blacksmith's work, you might have a pair of low iron stands on which to rest your logs. This lifts the wood off the floor of the hearth, allowing air to circulate underneath, which results in a hotter, cleaner, and more efficient burn. If iron is beyond your means, a few carefully chosen, non-porous stones can serve the same purpose. The hearth is the absolute center of your social world. It is the only source of light after the sun goes down, and its warm gravitational pull is irresistible. The family gathers around it each evening, not on comfortable sofas, but on low wooden stools or on the straw-strewn floor. All indoor work happens here. You might be repairing a piece of harness, the firelight gleaming on the leather and brass. Your wife might be combing and spinning wool into yarn, her hands a blur of practiced motion. An elderly parent might be weaving a basket from willow branches, while the children watch, absorbing the skills of their generation. The hearth is where you get all your news and entertainment. Tonight's feature presentation is log number 3, The Slow Burning. It's a sequel, and it's just as good as the first two. This is also the grand theater for the oral traditions that bind your family and village together. It is in the flickering, hypnotic light of the fire that stories are told, tales of saints, of local heroes, of mischievous sprites and fairies in the woods. Songs are sung, riddles are posed, and the day's gossip is exchanged. The history of your family, the knowledge of your craft, the laws of your community, all are passed down not through books, but through the spoken word in this warm, intimate circle. The eventual introduction of the wall fireplace with a dedicated chimney, a mainstream historical development that began in high-status castles around the 12th century, would one day fundamentally change the nature of domestic life. It created a focal point on one side of the room, dividing a space into a warm, public area near the fire and colder, more private areas away from it. But for you, in your humble dwelling, life remains round. The circle is the shape of your family, and the hearth is its center. It is the all-in-one appliance that cooks your food, warms your body, preserves your home, and illuminates your world. While the fire is a tool for preservation, it is also the engine of your daily life. To help it run efficiently, you might use a simple piece of hearth furniture, a quirky tidbit of ironmongery called a fire dog, or andiron. If you are prosperous enough to afford the blacksmith's work, you might have a pair of low iron stands on which to rest your logs. This lifts the wood off the floor of the hearth, allowing air to circulate underneath, which results in a hotter, cleaner, and more efficient burn. If iron is beyond your means, a few carefully chosen, non-porous stones can serve the same purpose. The hearth is the absolute center of your social world. It is the only source of light after the sun goes down, and its warm gravitational pull is irresistible. The family gathers around it each evening, not on comfortable sofas, but on low wooden stools or on the straw-strewn floor. All indoor work happens here. You might be repairing a piece of harness, the firelight gleaming on the leather and brass. Your wife might be combing and spinning wool into yarn, her hands a blur of practiced motion. An elderly parent might be weaving a basket from willow branches, while the children watch, absorbing the skills of their generation. The hearth is where you get all your news and entertainment. Tonight's feature presentation is log number 3, The Slow Burning. It's a sequel, and it's just as good as the first two. This is also the grand theater for the oral traditions that bind your family and village together. It is in the flickering, hypnotic light of the fire that stories are told, tales of saints, of local heroes, of mischievous sprites and fairies in the woods. Songs are sung, riddles are posed, and the day's gossip is exchanged. The history of your family, the knowledge of your craft, the laws of your community, all are passed down not through books, but through the spoken word in this warm, intimate circle. The eventual introduction of the wall fireplace with a dedicated chimney, a mainstream historical development that began in high-status castles around the 12th century, would one day fundamentally change the nature of domestic life. It created a focal point on one side of the room, dividing a space into a warm, public area near the fire and colder, more private areas away from it. But for you, in your humble dwelling, life remains round. The circle is the shape of your family, and the hearth is its center. It is the all-in-one appliance that cooks your food, warms your body, preserves your home, and illuminates your world. We have explored the genius of your home's materials, the interlocking stones, the flexible timbers, the breathing walls, the insulating thatch. We have seen how the design of the foundation, the floor, and the hearth all work together in a sophisticated system. But a question remains. In an age before laser levels, blueprints, or even widespread literacy, how did you ensure that your house was square? How did you achieve the precision needed to make all these interlocking parts fit together, preventing a lopsided, unstable mess? For the answer, we must go back one last time to the very beginning, to the moment you first marked the bare earth, armed with little more than a few wooden stakes and your most valuable precision instrument, a length of rope. Your high-tech layout tool is a piece of rope with some knots in it. It's powered by triangles and doesn't need batteries. It's also useful for tying up a goat. You can't say that about a laser level. With this simple tool, you are about to unlock the power of geometry to create perfect right angles and lay out a flawless foundation. The fundamental challenge for any builder is the creation of a true 90-degree corner. Without this, your walls will not meet correctly, your roof will not sit properly, and the entire structure will be inherently weak. You will solve this ancient problem using a piece of equally ancient knowledge, a mathematical secret that has been understood by builders for thousands of years. The magic of the 3, 4, 5 triangle. You're using advanced Pythagorean geometry to build your house. You don't call it that, of course. You call it the 3, 4 to 5 rope trick, which sounds less intimidating and more like something you'd see at a village fair. The principle is a universal truth. Any triangle whose sides have lengths in a 3, 4, and 5 ratio will always have a perfect right angle opposite the longest side, the hypotenuse. To turn this principle into a practical tool, you become a rope stretcher, an ancient title for the surveyors and builders who held this knowledge. You take your long rope and, with great care, you tie 12 knots in it at perfectly equal intervals. This creates 11 equal sections of rope. This knotted rope is now your ruler and your protractor. Now, you are ready to lay out the corner of your house. You drive a stake into the ground where you want the corner to be. This is your starting point. You place the first knot and the 12th knot together at this stake. You then ask 2 helpers, perhaps your son and a neighbor, to assist you. You instruct your son to take the rope and walk out in one direction, pulling it taut until he reaches the 4th knot. He holds this point firmly to the ground. You instruct your neighbor to take the seventh knot and walk out in a roughly perpendicular direction. Now, all three of you pull the rope taut. The rope forms a large triangle on the ground, with one side being 3 units long, from the first to the fourth knot. The second side being 4 units long, from the fourth to the seventh knot, and the third side being 5 units long, from the seventh knot back to the start. The corner where your son is holding the fourth knot, the angle between the side of 3 and the side of 4, is a perfect, undeniable 90-degree right angle. You drive a second stake in at this point, and another at the seventh knot. You have captured a perfect corner. This is the very same mainstream historical method used by the ancient Egyptians to achieve the astonishingly precise square bases of the Great Pyramids. The same universal mathematical law that guided the architects of the pharaohs is now guiding you in the construction of your humble dwelling. With your first corner established, you can now lay out the entire rectangular footprint of your house. You use the taut rope between your first 2 stakes as the line for your first wall. You measure out its desired length using the knots on your rope. At the next corner, you repeat the 3, 4, 5 rope trick to create another perfect right angle. You measure the next wall, and so on, until you have 4 stakes marking your 4 corners. As a final check, you measure the 2 diagonals of your staked-out rectangle. If the distance from the first corner to the third is exactly the same as the distance from the second corner to the fourth, you know your layout is a perfect rectangle. Thanks to a bit of ancient math, your house is perfectly square. This is deeply satisfying and means that when you build your one piece of furniture, it will actually fit in the corner. This geometric knowledge was the key to all medieval construction, from the humblest hut to the most soaring cathedral. It was often considered a professional secret, guarded closely by the guilds of master masons and carpenters. This quirky tidbit, the idea of master's secrets, explains how such complex structures could be built. This knowledge was their power, their livelihood, passed down from master to apprentice through years of hands-on training, not through textbooks. Historians of science and mathematics continue to debate exactly how this practical geometric knowledge was transmitted throughout a largely illiterate society of craftsmen. Was it passed down purely through oral tradition and rote memorization of techniques like the 12-knot rope? Or did builders use other simple, non-textual aids, like sticks notched with specific proportional ratios, or simple wooden squares for checking corners on smaller pieces of work? The evidence suggests a rich and complex system of practical, embodied knowledge, where geometry was understood not as abstract formulas, but as a series of physical actions and reliable tricks performed with simple tools. Your knotted rope is more than just a protractor. Pinned at one end, it becomes a compass, allowing you to swing perfect arcs and circles, a technique essential for laying out a curved apse on a church or even just a rounded garden bed. By using the principles of similar triangles, you can use sighting in your rope to calculate heights and distances that are impossible to measure directly. This is the unseen intellect behind your seemingly simple building. It is a testament to a mind that thinks not with written numbers, but with lengths, ratios, and shapes. It is a deep, intuitive understanding of the fundamental laws of space. Before the first stone of the foundation is laid, before the first timber is raised, it is this sophisticated yet simple geometry that brings order to the chaos, creating a precise and stable plan upon which your entire enduring home will be built. The knotted rope has been coiled and put away, its geometric secrets having served their purpose. The foundation of your home is now perfectly square, a precise and stable footprint on the earth. You have mastered stone, timber, and earth. You have bent the laws of physics and geometry to your will. But now you must face the most relentless and insidious enemy of any building, the force that will patiently work to undo everything you have created: water. Your final act as a master builder is to design a system to tame the rain and runoff, protecting your home for the centuries to come. You spend a surprising amount of your life thinking about where water is going. It's a constant obsession. You're not just a builder. You're an amateur hydrologist with a really big shovel. Your first and simplest line of defense is the shape of your roof. As we've discussed, its steep pitch sheds water efficiently, but just as important is its overhang. The eaves of your thick thatch roof extend a foot or two beyond the line of your walls. Your roof's overhang is so generous, it's like your house is wearing a giant, floppy hat. It's not a fashion statement. It's to keep its feet, the foundations, from getting wet. This overhang ensures that rainwater running off the thatch doesn't fall directly against the base of your walls, where it would erode the daub and seep into the timber sill beam. To manage the water once it drips from the roof, you create a corresponding feature on the ground, a drip trench. You dig a shallow ditch, perhaps filled with gravel or loose stones, directly below the eaves. This trench catches the water coming off the roof and, combined with the natural slope of the land around your house, channels it safely away, preventing it from pooling near your foundation. It is a simple feature that works in perfect harmony with your subterranean rubble trench, a two-tiered system for keeping the base of your house dry and stable. For higher status buildings you might work on, like the local church or the Lord's Manor House, these water management systems become even more sophisticated and visible. Here, you might find gutters, not the plastic tubes of the future, but gutters carved from hollowed-out logs or fashioned from planks of wood, perhaps lined with expensive lead sheeting. These collect the water from the vast roof and direct it to a single point. And at that point, you might find the most dramatic and famous piece of medieval water management technology: the gargoyle. That terrifying stone demon leaning off the church roof isn't just there to scare you into being good. It's a fancy gutter. Its main purpose is to spit rainwater on passers-by, a job it has been performing with distinction for 800 years. The gargoyle is a functional waterspout, a piece of architectural sculpture designed to project the collected rainwater far away from the building's stone walls. This prevents the water from running down the face of the masonry, where it would cause erosion, seep into the mortar, and damage the structure over time. The grotesque, monstrous forms were just a flourish, an opportunity for the stone carver to display his skill and imagination. In some cases, you might even employ a quirky but effective technology borrowed from agriculture. Just as farmers sometimes used short, cylindrical clay pipes to drain their fields, you might lay a line of these tile drains in an underground trench to create a more permanent and efficient drainage system for a particularly valuable building, channeling water away with unseen efficiency. The battle against water is not just about the building itself, but the landscape around it. You grade the earth around your home, creating subtle slopes and swales that encourage surface runoff from a heavy storm to flow away from your dwelling rather than towards it. The house does not exist in isolation. It is integrated into the local hydrology, designed to sit on a small, man-made island of dry land. Of course, these systems were not always perfect. Historians and hydrologists today debate their overall effectiveness in promoting public health. While these drainage methods were architecturally clever, did the inevitable pooling of water in the ditches and swales just beyond the house, combined with the general lack of sanitation, inadvertently create ideal breeding grounds for mosquitoes and waterborne diseases? It's possible that in solving the problem of a damp house, you created the problem of a sickly environment. But from a purely structural perspective, your water management system is a triumph. It represents the final layer of your building's defense. It is a holistic system where the steep roof sheds the water, the wide overhang directs it, the drip trench collects it, and the graded earth carries it away. Every part works in concert to protect the dry stone, the timber frame, the wattle and daub walls, and the rubble foundation that form your enduring home. You have created a structure that understands its greatest enemy and uses gravity and clever design as its shield. It is the final, crucial element that ensures your masterpiece of medieval engineering will stand strong against the ravages of time and weather. And so, our work is done. The last stone is laid, the final timber pegged, the roof is thatched, and the water is tamed. You can stand back and look upon the house you have built, a structure born of the earth itself, crafted with timeless ingenuity and a profound understanding of the natural world. Now, let the image of that sturdy, humble dwelling begin to soften in your mind. The feeling of the rough stone and solid oak in your hands can fade, replaced by the gentle comfort of your own bed, in your own time. Leave behind the satisfying heft of the builder's mallet and the earthy scent of wet daub. Let go of the complex calculations of geometry and the constant worry about the wind and the rain. The house is complete, and it will stand for centuries, a silent testament to your skill. But your work for the night is over. It is time to rest. Allow the quiet satisfaction of a job well done to become a feeling of deep peace, a gentle current that pulls you away from the world of doing and into the world of being. Let the stories of the past dissolve into the soft, quiet stillness of your own room as you drift into a deep and well-earned sleep. End of script. Sweet dreams.